We run them 3 times a year. It's actually a whole week because we have 5 different schools that are involved, plus all the uniformed organisations, so Cubs, Beavers, Brownies, Rainbows. The older groups don't tend to come. So the first term of every year we look at remembrance, and we look at various things in our church that are about the people that were lost from our church during the First World War. So we have the Roll of Honour, and on there are 3 particular brothers that we focus on, and we tell their story. The second term we look at the bell. We have a bell, the Abana Bell, from the famous shipwreck off the coast of Cleveland, and so the children learn more about the bell and how that came to be in our church. And then the final one, the one that you've been at today, is looking at a church in time. And so we look at a bit about how the church has changed in time, and particularly at the windows and some of the precious articles we have in our church. So that's the 3 of them and how they run during the year. We don't have any church schools in our parish. So we have 2 community primaries in our parish and 1 Roman Catholic school, and the 3 of them come. And then the 2 schools that are in Cleveland but are in Ankersholm All Saints parish, they also come. So 2 of them are 3 form-entry schools, the other 3 are 1 form-entry schools. So in total we have about 300 children each term coming through doing the Heritage Weeks. We started these because we were wanting to make a funding application for some Heritage Lottery money. And the Heritage Lottery people said we needed to show that our building was of value in terms of its heritage for the community. And so we thought up these activities for the children to do so that they learned more about the history of church, but also the history of Cleveland within that. The shipwreck obviously is a famous part of Cleveland's history, not just the church's history. 2018 was the first year, so I left working in school in 2017 and took on working as an advisor, and that gave me a bit more free time to do this kind of work. So I've been doing them now for 5 years. Obviously we had a little break during COVID. The parish fund that. So part of that is just through our normal giving, because part of our normal giving is for the mission and ministry of the church, and this is part of the mission of the church as we see it, working with our community. St Andrew's Church, obviously there is a church community, but we are the parish of Cleveland, and that Cleveland's wider community is part of our mission area. We also have 2 members of the parish who donate money, not generally to the parish, but specifically for this work. So that's how it's funded. The programme as we run it is quite expensive. That's because they pay a little for my time as well. The resources and the heating and all of that kind of cost, and with my time as well, it costs about £2,500 a year to run for the 5 schools. So far we haven't had to ask them to contribute financially, although some of the schools have offered. And who knows, in the future we may have to ask for a contribution, but at the moment we're funding it via church.
You look at our church, and it's not a 1,000-year-old church. It doesn't naturally attract heritage funding. It's 113 years old. But yet, it's the centre of our community here in Cleveland. And so many people don't know it exists. Everyone is a people of story. Jesus spoke in stories, right? And he did that deliberately because we're a people of story. And so by having the children come in and join in the story of their church, not my church, but their church, allows them to engage and become part of the church family, even if they may never only come in for a baptism, a wedding or whatever. It just starts that journey. And frequently I'll go into town and children will see me said, I've been to your church and you helped me colour in a stained glass window or whatever, and so this is absolutely vital to the mission of our church, and we're already seeing fruit, and I see fruit in these schools that I go into.
They all run in the same sort of way. The children are split into 3 groups. So there's an opening session, we're all together. We start obviously with the health and safety stuff, and then we talk about the theme, whatever it is we're talking about on that particular session. Then the children are split into 3 groups and they cycle round 3 activities. There's usually an extra activity in case of early finishers and things like that. But there are 3 activities. This one you've seen the activities as a timeline where they go hunting for the treasures and they put them in order so that we know the bell is the oldest thing in church. They order it to the newest thing. They make a biscuit because we want to emphasise the point that, yes, we've got this wonderful church with all these beautiful treasures, but actually the most important thing are the people. And they make, obviously, the chalice window that you've seen. So those are the activities that we do. Even though these are heritage days and we're talking about the history of the church and the history of Cleveleys, I always slip in a bit of faith where I can. I have to be careful because I know I'm talking to not Church of England schools, community primary schools, but the schools are quite happy with the work that we do.
We don't have any church schools. We've got 2 secular schools. And over the last 2 years, particularly with one school, I've been able to go. I'm going in every week at the minute. I would not have been at all surprised had these heritage events not happened, that would have taken 5, 6, 7 years easily. But instead, we're building those relationships with the local community. The kids and the teachers are getting to see Joe, who leads us, of course, and also myself when I can come out and help. But it just builds that relationship between our community and between the school, allowing us to just be the parish church for these people and for the children.
And we've got one family who came forward and both their daughters got baptised, and the first time I was involved in our church was through the Heritage Project. We have some of our children who are involved in church who love being the experts. So, when it's the bell one, they know where the bell is before I show where the other children where the bell is. So they get really excited. So the relationship works both ways. But it's really nice. So now when it's Thank You Teacher time, we can send a message from the church. We send Christmas cards and things like that. We're also involved with all the local nurseries, and they come and do some activities at a much lower level with Graham and with myself as well. So there's all sorts of things happening that weren't happening before the Heritage Days started.
These aren't free. And every year, Joe very graciously asks us, do we want to continue? And as a PCC, certainly from my point of view, I have expressed the opinion that these are absolutely one of the most vital things we do as a church. So as long as people are happy to fund them, these just simply need to continue. And they are of that opinion as well. We've had members of our church who've seen the fruit of these days who also donate privately and anonymously to allow these things to run.
But they're also very involved prayerfully as well. So there was a lady here before we started this morning who was praying with Graham. They started the day here in prayer. There are people who are praying behind the scenes for the week as it goes on. In the intercessions on Sunday, we prayed for the schools and the children at that point. So it's very much wrapped up in prayer, and that's part of the parish's involvement, but also they come and help me. So this one isn't a particularly messy one, but you can imagine when 300 children have made a clay bell, that the tables are pretty messy and the floor can be pretty messy. And so people come and help me mop and clean and tidy up. And, so many children going through the church in a week, the toilets get pretty messy. So there are loads of practical help in that way as well. So prayerful support, financial support, but also practical support from the church. I think it is the relationships with the children. I enjoy some of them. I know because they've been coming to church, or I've seen them in other situations. But a lot of them I don't know, and so seeing them and then them saying, "This is my church because I came here to the heritage thing." So when I see them in Cleveleys and they say, "I go to your church," that's really lovely. So I think that's probably the nicest thing of it.
There's something about getting folk here, teachers, children, to buy into the narrative of this community and the heritage of this community, which is housed largely here. We've got the Abana Bell, which of course is the famous shipwreck on the beach. And I, went into school and was able to talk to children about finding the treasure of Cleveleys, and we've got it in church, and it's this bell. The heritage aspect of a church, even in a church like this, which hasn't got huge amounts of nationally recognized heritage, is absolutely vital so that people can tell the story of their belonging to a community, and their community, and the focal point of that story is right here at St. Andrews, and we need to share. That's good news, I think.
It's challenging in terms of time, as you can imagine, providing activities for 300 children in 1 week. That week is quite chaotic and quite busy, and I'm running around all over, and something else always crops up during the week that you have to deal with. So Graham helps. He's here and he helps with some of the schoolwork as well. So those are the challenges. But just things like finding the amount of, buying enough M&Ms so everyone can use 8 M&Ms if they want to make their face. I go to the shop and look like I'm a sweetaholic with all these trays and boxes full of sweets. Buying enough clay. Going to the builder's merchant and buying enough stones for them to write on a stone. It's sort of the size of it. Obviously, if it was just the church and one school and you were doing an activity for 30 children in one school, the scale would be so much different. So the challenge really is the scale of it. But that's the joy of it in some ways as well.
What have you been doing here at church today?
Making faces on cookies with chocolate chips in them. We've been making biscuits.
Running around doing like a treasure hunt, trying to find words to make the words St Andrews.
And we've been sticking flowers on windows.
What have you learned about the church?
That the church is 113 years old, and there's a bell, and that is 150 years old.
The most important thing here is the people who are here. That we're the most special people that God loves.
The first thing to do is you pray. It's that easy. You pray and you pray and you pray. And then if you finish praying, you pray again. And from that, you look at the people around you and what skills have they got. With Jo, as a school, an ex-school head teacher, she has those skills and the abilities to deliver this really well. I'm an ex-teacher as well, so I've been able to plug into that fairly easily. But you might have other skills. And it's just to ask those questions. What skills have you got? How can you be creative? And don't be afraid to experiment, actually. Do you know what? The worst thing that happens is you have one-off event and it doesn't happen again. You try something different. But the best thing that could happen is it could be something like this, that year in and year out is sharing the gospel with children across primary school. How good.
You need to build a relationship with the schools first, because it only works if you've got a good relationship with them. And they need to be able to trust that you will do things properly. Like, for example, this one, they're fiddling with food. So they need to be confident that I've checked every item for food allergies, that I've asked them for food allergies, that there's a sheet there on the table that lists every item that we've got and all the food allergies, that they get a risk assessment before they come, so that they're confident that they're bringing their children to a safe place. So that's something that, they need to feel confident in, and that helps work. So I know it's sort of the boring bit of it, but it's a really important bit to make sure the relationship is established as a trusting one, because then you can talk more about other things. Because each time I do it, I say a little bit extra about something. Like today, I'm not sure whether it was this one or the one before, where the host was mentioned. A child called the bread the host. So I said something about that. Now, I haven't got permission from the head teacher to say that, but I know that he won't have a problem because it was done in the context of the work and the relationship that we have.
It's very easy to sort of go, woe is me, we can't, people aren't coming to church or whatever it is. And something like this doesn't seem like something natural that would lead people into church. Today, a child has talked to me about how their uncles recently died, and I was able to say, well, I'm going to say a prayer for them. I actually married this child's mother and father, and so there was a pastoral link there, and so suddenly I'm doing my job as a priest, and we don't get that opportunity enough. Give stuff like this a go, because this is sharing the gospel just as much as standing on a soapbox in the street and sharing the gospel is, and perhaps more so. You're building those relationships, you're showing that church isn't scary, and that is seriously good news for any church in any community, I think.